Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nick Rudolph, and I will be talking to y'all about the first steps in starting your small business. So before we get started, I'd like to let y'all know a little bit about what we do and who we are. The first thing is we are Maryland Capital Enterprises. We are what's known as a CDFI, a Community Development Financial Institution. And what that really means to a lot of folks is that we are a nonprofit bank, but there's much more to it than that. When we started in 1998, we were doing technical assistance and small loans at $500 or less to small businesses on the lower three counties of the Eastern Shore. Through time, we grew. We became an SBA intermediary lender, and then we hopped over the bridge to the Baltimore region in 2012. Currently, we serve the entire Eastern Shore, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, Harford County, and Cecil County. So we offer free one-on-one counseling services, webinars just like this one. We have a Women's Business Center conference every March and other events throughout the year. But if you want to learn more about us or our Women's Business Center, please check out either www.marylandcapital.org or Women's Business Center at marylandcapitalenterprises.org. To sign up, you just need to click on a Get Started button, fill out that form, and we'll be in touch with you in less than 3 days to get the ball rolling to help you start or grow your small business. So, when we're talking about the money, which is what most folks want to talk to us about, we are an SBA intermediary lender, but we get our funding to lend from lots of different sources, including Department of Treasury, USDA, the state, banks, and foundations. It's also good to remember that we don't expect that you would apply or get a loan from us in order to take advantage of our services. We can serve anybody in our service area. So let's get into the first steps for starting your business. And really, we want to talk about why folks start a business and then how to grow it. So the reasons that we want to start a small business are many. Oftentimes it's because you just want to make some more money, but there are lots of other reasons as well. You might have a talent or a skill you want to express and make some money doing. You might be sick of having a boss. It might be something you're passionate about. Maybe it's something that you say you want to take your hobby and turning it into your income. All of those things are great reasons to start a small business. But before you start, you need to realize that it's going to take a lot of work. I've had clients come to me and say, "Hey, I want to start a business because it'll be easier than working for another boss." Probably not true in most cases. You're going to need to do a lot of planning. You're going to need to have a lot of creativity, and the work is going to be very hard. But once the business is rolling, it really starts, to take off, and it becomes easier. So if you think of your business as a building like the one here, what you'll see is you go downtown, there's a vacant lot with a fence around it and a picture of a building on it. And they say, we're building this mixed use property. It's going to be great with apartments and a restaurant and all kinds of retail and offices. And then for 18 months, you see nothing going on. What's really happening there is the folks are doing their studies, their environmental studies, finding out if it's a brown field, all kinds of things, getting everything to build a strong foundation. So the more time you put in at the beginning of your business life until you open it, the stronger it's going to be, the easier it's going to be to become successful. Think about it. Once the building starts building in those sites, the skyscraper can be up in a few months, and then it's a bustling, busy mixed-use center. Your business can be exactly the same way. But we do have some scary things we need to talk about. It is a risk to start a small business. You can see these numbers here, but there's a caveat to that. People close businesses for a lot of reasons. Chefs will often open up a restaurant for just a few years. It'll be successful. They come up with a different concept. They close the first one, and then they open a new one. Folks sell their businesses because they're serial entrepreneurs and want to start more businesses. So there's lots of reasons why a business would close. It's not all negative, but it is still risky. So when you're starting that small business, you really want to start asking yourself some questions. And these slides will be available to everybody, so I won't just read these to you. But what you really want to be thinking about is, why, what, and how. Why are you starting this business? What do you want to do, and how are you going to be successful? And the things that you're going to be thinking about here are going to lead into your business plan. So, really think about, who is the customer that you want to serve? What are your products? Or are you just doing services? Do I have enough time and money to start the business? If not, how am I going to get that money? Is it home based or am I going to need to locate somewhere? Will you need employees or will it just be you? If you're selling stuff or you're doing a service that requires supplies, who are your suppliers and how are you going to do the wholesaling with them? You'll also want to know, do you need to take a loan or do you have the money in the bank? Who is your competition? That is absolutely huge. You want to understand where you fit in the market and what your special sauce is that's going to get you to get folks to come to you instead of that competition. You need to know about how much money you have in the bank because you need to realize how long it's going to take for you to start that business and then make a profit. And then you need to think about all of the sort of legal things, your insurance, your taxes, your zoning. Make sure that you can actually open where you are. What's your legal structure? An LLC might be safer for you as an individual. An S corp might be easier to run. It depends on each business the way you want to go. Then you want to think about how are you going to manage the business? Are you hands-on or are you just the money? And last, how you will market the business. How are you going to get the word out there? Is it a social media campaign or do you have a business that's more reliant on networking and things like that? Before we move forward, I wanted to see if we had any questions. Hey. So now we've got these 10 steps for starting a new business. And this PowerPoint is not just going through these 10 steps. In fact, this is the only slide on these. And the reason is because these are all very important, but they're all sort of woven into what we're going to be doing as you're starting your business. It's good to know that these are not ranked in any particular order. You might be doing these in a different order, and none is more important than the others. So the first thing you're already doing, you're getting your business assistance and training. There's nowhere else in the country with more services for small businesses for free than the Maryland area. So take advantage of it. Talk to all of us. Talk to all the CDFIs. Talk to the Small Business Development Center. Your local library probably has a business office. Ask us all the same questions. Take advantage of our expertise. Then you need a business plan. So once you've got all that plan in your head, you need to get on a piece of paper. We're going to go through in depth what is involved in a business plan. Then you want to understand if you're going to employ folks, what are your responsibilities? It's not just paying them. There's payroll taxes, there's different types of insurance, there's different types of liabilities. You want to think about whether they're going to be employees or if you're going to have contractors working for you. Again, the location, are you going to be able to do this business from your home or are you going to need to have a brick and mortar or is it some sort of structure in between the two? Then you want to figure out your legal structure again, LLC, S Corp, lots of different things you could be doing there. You want to register your business then with the state and with the IRS. And that is really important. You are not eligible to receive our services if you are not in good standing. So you want to make sure that you are registered. Next, you want to start thinking about, your state and your local taxes. Depending on your county or your city, there may be additional taxes that you have to pay. There might be fees and permits that you may have to do when you're getting your business license. So talk to everybody, state, county, and local. You also want to get your financing in order. That's the time when you want to start thinking about, do I have enough money to start and grow this business? Is there enough of a buffer that's going to last me a couple of months until I start having profit? And then how will you get that money? Is it going to be a loan? Do you have investors or do you just have your own money? Then you want to develop your marketing plan. And we're going to go into what a marketing plan is in a little bit more depth, but just know that it's much more than how you're going to advertise the business for right now. So then we want to start talking about how you're going to understand your market. And that means where you fit in as a business in the business marketplace locally and nationally. So you need to first determine if there's room in the marketplace for you. So you want to do some research, see if there is a gap in what you do and where you can fill that gap. You also want to start looking for trends. Has the business type been growing, but the growth is slowing down? How are you going to deal with that slowed growth? Or is it growing and growing faster? Are you going to be able to handle all of those clients as soon as you open? So it's going to identify the opportunities for you. Now, we say data and citations for a business plan. Really, what we're looking for is statistics to let us know that there's room in the market for you. It's a very simple internet search. Google is your friend. Particularly if you're in a larger industry, you might be wanting to look at industry publications, but finance magazines, Fortune magazine, things like that might have it, along with government websites. Also, if you have a local chamber of commerce, first join it, and then talk to other folks who are in similar businesses and see if you can get some information from them. They also might have a resource library that can help you out. Trade organizations, if you've got a business that relies on union work, the unions might have that information. And then also you want to think locally, regionally, nationally, and even internationally. We're so web-based these days. Your clients aren't just coming from around the corner, they can be coming from around the world. But there are advantages and disadvantages of starting a business, and I think that's really important to think about. So you got your pros. You get to be your own boss like you want to. You can't be fired, technically. Your income is going to be determined by your own efforts a lot of the time. So you can make more if you work more. You're doing something hopefully that you love. You're also helping build a stronger community. You're helping families out by providing good paying jobs. You're adding more amenities to your local community. You are helping your area grow. There are some cons. First of all, you are going to be working long hours, especially in the first few months and years of your business. This is not a 40-hour a week job. Sometimes it's not even an 80-hour a week job. No matter how much you plan, there's always a financial risk. So you're really, really, jumping into the deep end, and you want to make sure that you've got as much support for you as possible. And that's what we're here to help you do. You may need additional training, education. You might need additional time. So you really want to think about that. One big piece of advice we have for folks who are starting a business is slow down. We want things to happen quickly, but if they're going to happen effectively, it's going to take a little bit of time. You're not going to have a lot of time to yourself or time for vacations in those first few years. And the reality is that when you're a business, all of your clients, all of your employees, all of those people are really your bosses because you can't do anything without them. Now, a lot of folks like to ask us about grants for small businesses. And the truth of the matter is that there are not a lot of grants for most small businesses. On these type of businesses here, there are occasionally grants. I would look at your state Department of Commerce, or whatever department would fit for your business. So if you're opening up assisted living home, the Department of Health, you want to think about things like that. So these are the places where there are occasionally grants. Also, if you have a retail storefront and you're in a historic commercial district, your city will often give you a facade improvement grant if you apply that will pay for a portion of your signage, windows, lights, cameras, ADA accessibility, things like that. So before we go into the keys to success, I want to give folks another opportunity to ask questions if they have any. Okay, we don't. We'll keep on going. So what do you need to make it in a small business? Well, first of all, you're going to need to have skills. So you want to think about, do I have experience in my industry? And if it's just something you really like, but you don't have a lot of experience in, you're going to want to think about, how am I going to gain that education? Can I get a mentor? What can I do to become an expert that people want to come to? You also want to think about any business management experience you have. And that can be in different areas, right? So you might be opening up a construction firm, but you managed a Taco Bell in high school and college. You do have management experience and this experience that you can draw on. You also want to see if you can effectively recognize, improvise, and solve problems. Man, we are going to plan, plan, plan for your small business. We're going to come up with every problem we can possibly think of. And the day you open your doors, a different problem is probably going to happen. So you got to be able to think quick. You got to be able to improvise, and you got to be willing to problem solve, and make concessions where you might need to. Also, if you don't have that experience, again, can you get that with that education or their mentor? So there are a few legal things you want to think about when you're starting a small business. Really importantly is, are you in the right zoned area, right? So there are a lot of places that are zoned commercial or residential. Oftentimes in some residential places, you can't even have a home office in your home. So you want to make sure that you're doing that right. You also want to check your licensing requirements for your state and your local area. Are you going to have to get occupancy permits, the fire department, health department, all kinds of things like that. Then the rest of the things we're going to talk about are really your bail team. And what that means is you want to have all of these folks on hand, right? So you've got a banker. So you want to develop a relationship with your bank, hopefully before you're even starting a business. Walk into your local branch, ask to talk to the business banker, tell them about your ideas, and they're going to have lots of ideas of how they're going to be able to help you out. When you are talking to these folks, you want to be honest and transparent. If you've got issues with credit in the past, if you've had a bankruptcy or something like that, tell them. Also, a lot of these banks offer free small business accelerators. Ask them about them, and if they have them, see what it takes to get in those. Those are a great place to get a network, to get a great education, and oftentimes they've got a pitch competition at the end where you can get some free money. The next part is your accountant. You want to make sure that even if you don't have an accountant or retainer, you've got some sort of relationship with one. The reason why is because if you've got somebody looking at your books, when you're in the weeds and starting your business, you're going to have somebody that's going to make sure that you're complying with everything, with all of your taxes, so that you stay in good standing. It's also just a really good thing to have in case you get audited. And accountants also are really smart about money, and they'll often give you ideas about ways that you could be saving money or making more money. Your insurance agent. Every small business needs insurance, especially if you're going to be borrowing, because we're going to require that you have insurance then. So you want to think about how much is it going to cost. So if you've got a pretty basic business that's home-based and online sales, it might be, $600 to $1,000 a year. But once you start dealing with food, kids, transportation, medicine, anything like that, it can jump a lot. So you want to make sure to talk to your agent and see what coverage you need and what that's going to cost. Also, as you add employees, you want to be talking to your insurance about that, because that might make it go up. And then last, we've got the lawyer. So again, you don't need to have this person on retainer, but you want to have a relationship with the lawyer. You want to be saving money for them in case you ever need that person. Somebody slips and falls in your restaurant, or maybe you have an opportunity to go after something, but you need a little bit of legal advice. So we're going to go into the business plan next, but before that, do we have any basic questions off of what I've already spoken? Alrighty, so what is a business plan and what should it contain? Well, it is the blueprint for your business. So really, you want to think about it as something that somebody could pick up, understand what you're doing, and have a good idea of how you're going to operate that business. But there's going to be a lot of people reading that, and you really want to tailor your business plan for whoever is going to be reading it. So for instance, if you're applying for a loan from a regular for-profit bank, they are going to like to see that you're a good part of your community and that you volunteer and you donate, but really what they're looking for is, can you pay back that money? Now, if you're applying for a grant from a foundation or from your local municipality, then you might be wanting to put in the forefront that you're hiring locally, that you're a part of the community. So if you've got a business plan that's sort of set up like a resume where you can move bullet points around, that's going to help you easily tailor it to your audience. So now we're going to talk about the parts of the business plan. These are the four, well, these are two of the four sections that we have. This is the way that I would write a business plan, but you know how to tell your story better than I do. So if it makes sense to put things in a different order, to add sections, to combine sections, that's fine as long as it makes sense to you. So the first part is your executive summary, and you're pretty much going to always want to have one of these. The first thing that you want to start off with is an introductory sentence or paragraph that's going to set the reader up to understand what you are looking for from them. So I might say, Nick's Dill Pickling Company is an LLC operated out of Baltimore, Maryland, run by Nick Rudolph. We are seeking $10,000 to purchase additional pickling equipment and a label maker. That, if I have that right at the beginning, the banker, whoever is looking at that, is going to understand who I am, what I do, where I am, and what I need and why. With that, as they're looking through the rest of the plan, they're really going to be looking for a reason to say yes. And so if they already know the question, it becomes easier to say yes. After that, you really want to talk about what brought you into the business. This is where you can be flowery, talk about, what inspired you. Talk a little bit about your experience, what your business does, And then at the end, make a larger ask with a little bit more detail about what you're doing. What specifically are you going to buy and why? The next section is your longest section, and that's the marketing plan. As I said before, it is so much more than just how you're going to advertise. So this is the part where you're going to put all that information about where you fit in the marketplace. You want to show that there's room for you in the market. It's also, we're going to talk about your competition. And what I recommend doing is listing three competitors, give them praise, talk about what they do well, and then talk about how you are going to compete with them. What is your special sauce? Do you have a lower price point? Do you offer additional services? Is it just great customer service? What's going to get people to come to you instead of them? Then you want to talk about your costs and your pricing policy. Are you high end, middle of the road, or a value proposition? Then you want to start talking about how you're going to advertise. This is where you're talking about your social media plan, and you can't just say, we'll advertise on social media. We want to know exactly what you're doing, where you're going to be advertising, and what that's going to look like. Are you going to do more traditional like newspapers, television, and radio? Are you going to focus on networking and conferences? Depending on your business type, any of those can work. The next section is your organization and operations section. This is where you're talking about, your day to day. What are you doing, right? So, if you're working from an office, what are your hours? If you're working from home, when are you going to be available to talk to customers? You're going to talk about your legal form. You're going to talk about your management structure. Are you managing the employees or is somebody else doing that? If you're hiring, what is your plan to hire them? You then want to talk about contingency plans, right? So what happens if you get in a car accident and can't work for 6 weeks? How does your business continue to go? And then a real short COVID plan. What happens if an employee or customer tests positive and they've been around other employees or customers? How will you let folks know? The last section is your financial plan, and that's going to look different depending on whether you're an existing or a new business. So in a new business, you're going to talk about your startup cost and what you think is your break-even point. You're going to have cash flow projections, which we're going to go into great detail. You might want to add those there. Also, if you're looking for a loan and you've got some credit issues, this is the place to talk about that. The thing that we hate worse than a low credit score is a surprise. So if somebody tells us that their credit is perfect and we pull it and it's, a 550, that's going to say something about their character. But oftentimes we can do a loan with a 550 because the person has said, look, 6 years ago, my parents got ill. I had to quit my job. I fell behind on my bills. It kind of trashed my credit, but look, this is what I've been doing to get it higher. That's why we don't have a minimum credit score. We're really looking at the whole story. So you really want to be upfront and honest about that, and then we can try to help find ways to mitigate that. So that is what is in your business plan. Before I go into cash flow projections, I know I went through that pretty fast, so I wanted to see if there were any questions about the business plan. Nope. Okay. So cash flow projections, what are they? Well, really, you're looking at the difference between money coming in and profit. So you're looking at the money coming in and what your expenses are. So, if you're making $5 million a week in gross, but it's costing you 5.5 million to sell all that, then you're losing money. So you really want to think about, really what is that net? So why do we need these? Well, first of all, if you're going for a loan, they're required. They're a great planning tool. They give you an opportunity to say, hey, has my business been doing what I thought it was doing? And if not, where should I invest in my business? Should I invest in something that's going weaker to make it stronger, or something surprisingly strong and maybe we want to shift focus to that? It shows you that difference between the profit and cash flow. It's just good governance, and it shows you when you can start paying yourself, which is huge. So as you see here on the right-hand side of your screen, there's a scary spreadsheet. But the truth of the matter is it's not scary at all. We understand that this is a living document that's going to be changing constantly. Not only will it not be accurate, most of the cells will probably not be accurate, and that is okay. We're just looking for an estimate. We want to see you be realistic and not too bullish. Your company is going to make $2 billion in the first year, but if you put that on our cash flows, that's going to scare our loan committee. What you want to show is that in a worst case scenario, you can pay all your bills, pay your employees, and pay yourself. We had a person who had a one-person shop doing handmade wedding invitations. they averaged $1,000 per wedding, but their cash flow said, well, because there's 10,000 weddings a year in Maryland, I'm going to make $10 million. Well, that's never going to happen. People don't all get invitations. People don't all have $1,000 to spend on invitations. So we had them show us that, through 5 or 10 a month, they can make what they need to. If they do better than that, then that's great. You want to break down your income streams and your expenses, and you want to break them down in as much detail as possible. So, for instance, if you have a restaurant, you can choose between dine-in, carry-out, and catering, or you might want to look at it through food, alcohol, and merchandise. As I said before, when you're looking as your business is going, if you thought you were going to be 70-30 food and alcohol, but it's really 60-40, you get to ask yourself that question, is the alcohol program strong or is the food program weak? And then you can dedicate resources based on that. You also want to think about, um, does your business change month to month, right? So if you are a landscaper, your December is probably not as busy as your April. So think about things like that. You want to put your loan in as income, we think positively, and your loan payments as expenses. Usually you want to start paying your loan 1 or 2 months after you get it on your cash flows. You want to talk about other financing you have. So if you've got a loan somewhere else, put that on the cash flows. There's a big misconception that there's a whole bunch of competitors with the banks and the CDFIs. The truth is that we have a collaborative relationship. We talk to each other. So if I say, hey, Bob's Donuts is applying for $50,000 from us, they're really cool. You should check them out. And the other banker I'm talking to says, hey, they're applying for $50,000 or they have a $50,000 loan from us. And I don't know about that. That's one of those surprises that we're not going to like. And then we want to make sure that you're paying yourself. We are a nonprofit. We want you to make sure that you are paying yourself, that you've got a place to live, you got food, you got clothes, and you've got a quality of life. Are there any questions about the cash flows before we go into specifically obtaining financing for your small business? Nope. Okay, we're going to get through this pretty quick then. So we offer similar loans to other CDFIs. A lot of banks are not funding startups that are less than 2 years old right now. Not all of them, though. But what we have is any loan for a business that is 2 years old or less, they're eligible for up to 35,000. Around for more than that, you're eligible for up to 150,000. The term is going to depend on the size of the loan. 35,000 will probably be 5 years. Anything over 100 will probably be 10 years. Our rates go 6 to 12%. I'd say sort of on average, we're around 8% as the interest rate. We do require collateral, but we can be very flexible with what that is. Anybody who owns 20% or more is going to have to personally guarantee this loan. We are only looking at personal credit. We're not looking at business credit. So if you have got a lot of owners and nobody owns 20%, we'll want to see 3 or 4 people personally guarantee the loan. The application fee is $100 plus $25 per owner for the credit report. We do a TransUnion soft pull, so it won't impact your credit. If you are approved, there are closing costs. Usually a $50,000 loan is going out at just north of $48,000. We take automatic payments from your business account every month. And there's no penalties for prepayment. So two sides to that. If you make your money and your loan is 30 days old and you just want to pay it off, that's great. You pay less interest. We have more money to lend. But if you are starting your business or you're hitting a slow point and you can't make that payment, if you let us know at least a week ahead of time, we can go to interest only. We can defer. We can even restructure the loan because we want to help you improve your credit scores and not have any missed payments. We are going to visit you twice a year, and that can be virtual or in person. We're going to want to see your books. We're going to talk to you about how your business is doing and let you know about any resources that we may have. What type of businesses are eligible? Basically, any small business in our service area, unless they're in what's known as the sort of sin industry, so adult bookstores, 100% alcohol, things like that. We are allowed to work in the medical and recreational cannabis spaces, however. What can you use those funds for? Any small business related expense generally. So that can be, your lease, your furniture, your build out, your equipment, your salaries, your marketing, all of that kind of stuff. There are a few things though that we cannot pay for. If you're a home-based business, we cannot pay for your rent, mortgage, or utilities. And if you're a business that is in real estate investment, we can't help you purchase or rehab a building that you're not going to be occupying at least 51% of, but we can do things like help you with a truck or big pieces of mechanical equipment, things like that we are able to fund. We also have another loan called a credit builder loan. This is for folks with no credit, poor credit, or have a business already in place that has a small issue that they want to get taken care of quickly, like a tree root growing through a pipe. These go up to $5,000. They're a 9% interest rate. Generally, they're a 2-year turn. We do not require collateral on them, but it is encouraged. Everything else is the same except for the fees. It's a $50 application plus the credit report fee, and the closing costs are set at $75. Other than that, everything is the same. Once you've been paying on it for a year, oftentimes you can talk to us about a larger loan. But this is really a way a lot of folks get started, especially if they don't have any credit. So what do you need to get one of these loans? Well, we're going to want to see a thorough business plan with a clearly established business idea. We're going to want to see your experience or your plan to gain experience. The strength and realisticness of that cash flow, the strength of the collateral, wholly owned real estate is the best. But again, we can get pretty flexible. Reasonable credit, we're going to be looking at the last 12 to 24 months, figuring out if there's been missed payments on things like credit cards, mortgages, cars, things like that. We do not, we only have two disqualifiers, I'm sorry. One is that if you've had a bankruptcy discharged in the last 24 months, or if you have a tax debt without a payment plan. Now, if you don't have both of those, that doesn't mean you're automatically approved. It just means that you're not disqualified from applying at all. We're looking at the general economic conditions for the venture. Is this the right time to open this business right here? So if you're opening up a pizza shop on a block with 6 other pizza shops, you're going to have to explain to us how you're going to compete. Also, your ability to repay the loan. If the business is not successful, are you able to get back into that workforce? As far as the application documents, we're all looking for pretty much the same thing. There's some sort of intake. Ours is online. You can find it on our website, marylandcapital.org. In the top right-hand corner, it says Get Started. We're going to look at the business loan application. Again, ours is online. There's a personal information supplement. That's a simplified personal financial statement. Again, that's submitted online. The documents that we're going to want to see you attach to your business loan application are your business plan and 24 months of cash flow projections moving forward, which is something that we are more than happy to hold your hand through. We're going to want to see a statement of how this loan is going to help you grow. We're going to want to see an explanation of credit if that is an issue. If you are an existing business, we're going to want to see 2 years of profit and loss, your quarterly balance sheet, and your federal tax returns. If you're a new business, we are going to want to see your personal tax returns, and actually all businesses need to give us your personal tax returns. 3 months of personal and corporate bank statements. Of course, if your business is brand new, you might not have 3 months. We'll want to see that an account does exist. We're going to want to see proof that your loan was turned down by another lender. Now, that means you could just talk to your bank and your banker says, look, we don't do startups. Maybe go try MCE. That's enough. Everything else is going to be optional. Reference letters, if you've got folks who are going to, willing to put it down on pen and paper that you do a great job, those are great, especially in a situation where like you are renting a booth at a salon and you want to open up your own salon. If you can bring us a stack of letters from clients saying that we're going to move over to that salon once you open, that makes my job a lot easier to convince the committee to, fund your loan. Anything else that you want to add is helpful. So if you've got a lease, a resume, estimates, invoices, contracts, licenses, marketing material, websites, videos, anything like that that you can send that's going to help tell the story and help us learn more about who you are, that's going to be helpful in getting you a yes. So what happens next? You submit your loans by the first Friday of the month. Oftentimes, if it's, the first Friday is very early, first, second, or third, we can extend that deadline. We're going to make sure you've got that client intake form. You'll be assigned a single staff member to help you out. You submit that paperwork, we follow up with you, and then the loan committee meets on the 4th week of the month. They determine the amount, rate, and term of the loan. One thing that we do not do, though, however, is partially fund loans. The reason why is if you tell us that you need $50,000 to start your business, we're going to look at ourselves and say, if we give that person 25, we're going to set them up to fail with debt, and we don't want to do that. So really ask for what you need. Don't think I'll ask for 100 because I only need 50. That's just not how we work. Um, if it's a yes, we issue a commitment letter right away. If loans are approved, they're usually funded in 3 to 4 weeks. If you're using a home or real estate as collateral, we're going to need a appraisal that's less than 12 months old, but don't get that until your loan is approved. So, before I end this, there's a few things I like to end every presentation for or with. This, most importantly, again, there is nowhere else in the country where there are more free small business resources. You should take advantage to all of us and ask us all questions. So you've got MCE. Most libraries have a business center. Most counties have a local economic development department or organization. You've got your chamber. The Department of Commerce is super helpful, especially if you're a larger business or dealing with anything international. The Maryland Small Business Development Center, or SBDC, it's an SVA program, as is SCORE, which is the Senior Corps of Retired Executives. Local universities such as Morgan State in Baltimore and Salisbury on the Eastern Shore. Um, those often have business centers. They have classes looking to do projects for small businesses. Get to know your schools. They're really, really helpful. And then local business organizations like your downtown partnership, your main streets, and things like that. So 5 things to remember when you're applying for capital. Number one, don't quit your day job. You don't want to not have, you want to have income coming in as long as you're growing your business until it can support you. Unless you're an accountant, you need an accountant. And honestly, even if you are an accountant, you need an accountant. As I said before, when you're starting and growing your business, you're in the weeds. You can miss deadlines. That sets you up for fines and not being eligible for services like ours. Like I said in that last slide, you're already doing it, but ask for help. Talk to all of us. The more help you get, the better chance you have of succeeding. Put your money in the bank, all of it. That means if you're looking for a loan, this is not the time to be spending money. It's not the time to be opening up another credit card, buying a house, buying a car, something like that. So you want to make sure that you're showing your best accurate position of where you are. And then no business is an island. The reason why people go to small businesses is because small businesses are part of their community. So be part of that community. Give to local charities, join your chamber, your Rotary, your Main Street, anything like that. If there are big volunteer days, adopt a road, things like that. But we do live in pretty politically charged times. So when you're thinking about charities, you want to think about things that everybody can get behind. Things like kids, animals, food banks, veterans. If you think about it, when you walk into a bar or a restaurant, you always see sports. Um, the reason why is if they had Fox News or CNN on, they'd be angering half of the people that walk in the store. And the truth is that Democrat money and Republican money spends exactly the same. Unless you're a political business, your customers should not know how you vote. We do have a lot of great webinars coming up for free. I'm doing another First Steps on July 9th. We've got a SBA person coming in on July 3rd for questions and answers. Those are always fun. You can just pop in and out and ask your question. We've got some SBA Ascent and online resources for small businesses also on July 9th. And then SAM.gov Simplified. If you're going to be working in the federal space or looking for federal grants, Rosalind Davis is amazing, and she can talk to you about how to get ready for that. And with that, I will open it up for any final questions. While you're thinking of those questions, I always think of mine after these things end, so feel free to email me if you have any questions afterwards, or if you want to set up a time to review business plans or go over cash flows. So were there any questions? Okay, well, thank
Oh,
you all very
sorry. I actually had a quick question.
Sure.
Hi, yeah, my name is Helena. So I do have an established small business already, and I was wondering about business insurance. So I did recently purchase some, but the nature of my business is online fully, so I don't need like a brick and mortar or anything. I have a home office, and I don't have
Mhm.
any employees, but I do hope to hire some 1099s within the next
Mhm.
year. Do I need extensive insurance, or is just the simple business insurance? Would that suffice
So,
because I won't have any W-2s?
right. So I think it would be the simple, or maybe the simple with just a little add-on, but each business is different. If you contact me individually, we can talk about the more private stuff, and then I can give you a better advice there.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you all for coming today, spending your lunch hour with me. Like I said, you've now got my email. Just think of me as a free small business resource for you. I forgot to mention earlier that all of our services are completely free, whether or not you're applying with a loan from us. With that, hope to see you on a webinar soon, and have a great day.